everybody? Welcome to this special solo episode of WAM. I'm Nick, and today I have a very special guest, my friend Nolan Wally, for the first time. Welcome, Nolan.
Hey, I'm glad to be here.
So, how's it feel?
Deja vu-ish, maybe.
I was gonna say that too.
I don't know. I feel like I've seen these walls before.
I mean, yeah, but how does it feel?
It feels kind of deja vu-ish, if you know what I mean.
Welcome to WAM. Episode 16. We watched Killers of the Flower Moon. It came out October 20th. I saw it on Thursday. Nolan saw it on the day of.
Yeah.
Long ass movie, but it was good.
Yeah, it's a very long movie, but this is only his second longest. The Irishman was one longer. One good aspect of that is that it didn't really have a strong theatrical release. It was more focused on watching it on Netflix. And when you watch it on Netflix, you have a lot more room to pause and then return.
Yeah, you can take little. If that had an intermission halfway through, I would have felt so much better.
I will admit, in comparison, I never finished The Irishman because I thought it was super boring. I know I should. I've heard it's really good. I just have never finished it. On the other hand,
it's just slow.
Yeah. On the other hand, I didn't feel like this was slow. I felt like everything was happening at a decent pace, and I guess being in the theater really helped me to make sure I stayed focused.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't a fast-paced movie, but we were on a consistent moving track. It was slow, but there was constantly some kind of progress or something that we were moving towards or changing.
Yeah.
So because of that, you did feel the runtime just because it was slower like that, and there really isn't any big action bits. So you are kind of going through the movie at kind of a snail's pace just because it's all conversation and monologues. Yeah.
One thing I noticed is it's very interesting to see what is focused on and what isn't lengthwise, how long we stay in certain time periods, because this is a Martin Scorsese film that's focusing on one person sort of going through this life change, this life goal. This is pretty standard. It's very similar to Goodfellas and Wolf of Wall Street in its setup. And it sort of goes through a long period of time, but it also doesn't focus on it very much. It's very quick how we go from, oh, I met this lady to, oh, I have a child with her. That was super quick. It's everything else that's slower.
I think it's good to show just to show importance of, obviously we don't need to see him having the baby, having another baby, growing the family and everything, because we can put the pieces together, but we're given exactly what we need. And I think it was a true story, right? Or at least based on, I guess.
This is based off a book on the same name.
Yeah. And the cast, I think everyone did amazing. I think everyone did it really well. Especially that guy that I think we talked about it before. The dude that said we wouldn't have killed his kids if it was illegal.
The cast that aren't big name actors in this are not only really fitting visually, because they all look as if what you imagine this sort of cowboy, this 1920 setting to look like. Yeah. But they had great performances. And what Nick was saying is there's this line where the federal agents are sort of coming into the situation, which is very far into the film. Yeah. We're mostly just given, the last hour. The rest of it is literally just premise. And then we have this one guy who's talking to his lawyer, and he's going, okay, so I have my Native American wife and I have my Native American kids. If the kids die, do I get the right to their oil money? And the lawyer just goes, that makes it sound like you're going to kill your kids, right? And he immediately...
I wouldn't do it if it was illegal or if I get in trouble.
If I didn't get money, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. There was a lot of good little comedic one-liners that were just kind of thrown in this movie, but I wouldn't say it's a funny movie.
It's not a funny movie, but this is... Let's be honest, that's sort of very strong in Scorsese. He always has been able to deliver comedy because you're not expecting it.
Yeah, it's just wait, what did I get? What? And then you're already gone to the next thing.
There were some good laughs in this movie. And there were some good, not frights on my part, but I watched this with someone who, there's one scene in which a bomb goes off, but it's outside of your view. It's just through a window. And you don't expect it to happen. He yelped in the theater.
Man, that's funny, but,
It was funny. I looked at
yeah.
him like, "What's wrong with you?"
Yeah, like, really? So the story of this movie is that, these Native Americans in Oklahoma, like the
Mhm, the
specific tribe of
Osage.
natives, yeah, the Osage, find oil on their land, and then, a bunch of white people come, and they build hospitals and schools and, quote, unquote, "bring them into the 21st century the 20th
Mm,
century," whatever.
mhm.
Um and then while they're doing this, they're getting men to come in, marry the women that have rights to that oil and that land, and then the women mysteriously happen to die. Oh my gosh. And it happens to all of them. And
It
so
happens to quite a lot of them.
yeah, and at the beginning and end of this movie, Martin Scorsese did a little vlog, like, thanking people for coming and, like,
Uh-huh.
how important the story was to him,
Mhm.
and then in the very end of the movie, he wraps everything up, after fucking 3.5 hours, he wraps it all up in a nice little bow, just by talking on stage like an orator, with, like,
Mhm.
some Foley sound effects in the background to add to it, and that part's really cool, but
Yeah.
it was really strange.
Well, I think if you're gonna have sort of the, like, closing moment in most films based on a true story where it tells you where their life went after the events,
Mm,
usually they just do it by showing a photo and then, like, they put some captions on it. In this, they go ahead and make it into, like, a true crime radio series set in roughly the 1950s, and that's really interesting how we can fit all of this information into, like, the time it's put into. I really like that bit.
I do the little bit at the end wasn't bad, but it took me off guard. I was like, "Why is he back?"
Mhm.
Um But everything in this movie, I think, is wrapped up nicely. There's nothing that I really had questions about afterwards. Like,
Mhm.
there were no characters where, like, "Oh, I wonder what happened with that guy," or, "I wonder,
Yeah.
like, how this affected them," because all of our questions were answered pretty quickly, and there wasn't really a lot of mystery, even in the fact that
Mhm.
we know exactly who the killers are majority of the time.
The best thing about this movie is there's a big amount of cast members, but you never get confused on who's who.
Yeah.
I think they did a really great job with that. Um,
Everyone does a great job of staying in their lane, and you don't get confused with what's going on in the movie because it is that slow, consistent pace. You have a constant, like, pretty good idea of what's going on and, like, who's around and all that.
yeah, and it keeps reiterating in a very original, or not original, but a very authentic and organic way of, hey, we're just going to give you the information like maybe one more time just so you make sure, or just so we know that you have it.
Yeah. Now I mean, really, let's talk costume design first, actually, because I think it was kinda
Mhm.
interesting. Um or kinda costume design. So all the Osage, all the women are carrying around blankets and everything and,
Mhm.
like blankets they've woven and all that, and they wear them all around, and so then the people end up calling them, like, blankets, like, "Is your blanket with you?" Like, as in, "Is the whatever Osage lady you're gonna murder with you?"
Oh,
Um,
really? I didn't even notice that.
yeah, that's why they started calling the women blankets, like, halfway through, and then
Wow.
the husband the wife of Leo was like, "These blankets are just a target on our back." Because
Molly.
only the Osage women wear those blankets around them.
Mhm.
Um, and then also just all of the other, like, no one in this movie to me struck me as like "Oh, alright, they got a prison guard costume," kinda thing. Like, it all looked very real and very, I guess it was just realistic. I didn't ever
Mhm.
look at someone and think it was a costume more than anything. It all fit everyone, and the casting was fantastic. I don't know why Brendan Fraser was there and he was so loud.
He
That
was,
was weird.
he was a great part of this. I wanna see him in more roles like that. I
I
think
wanna
he
see him in
fits.
bigger roles. That was so tiny.
Well, no, dude, it's Scorsese movie. That's it doesn't
Well,
matter
yeah, but I'm
what role
saying
you have in it.
I want more Brendan Fraser is in the main cast movie kinda thing.
I get that. I think he did really good in this
Yeah,
part. I
I just
also
want
think
more.
it was just the judge from, no, sorry, it's just the lawyer from the B movie.
Yeah,
"Excuse
it
me,
definitely
your
is.
honor."
He immediately stands up, makes a big that really is actually. You could draw a lot of comparisons really easily. Um, but the time passage in this movie, like we were saying before, really doesn't ever hinder the storytelling, and
No.
I mean, like you're kinda saying, it never feels like you're jumping too far. You're never at a point and you're like, "Whoa, okay, wait, what happened?" where you can infer everything pretty quickly through the conversations and just like the family, how many people are in the house or like what house they're in
Mhm.
kind of deal.
Yeah.
Um, and through this movie, we also see that our character Leo really does care for the woman that he married. I don't remember her name.
Molly.
Molly. Molly's the Osage that Leo is marrying to get her money.
Yeah. We don't
Um,
remember his name, though. It's Leonardo DiCaprio's character.
yeah, it's Leo. Come on now.
It's Leo.
And so we get a really good understanding that he actually does really love her and care for her. He isn't really only doing it for the money. Where at the beginning of the movie, when we're introduced, it's immediately we're with Leo's uncle and he's telling him like the whole rundown, like straight up, like we're here to steal their land and the money by
Mhm.
marrying them. Are you cool with that?
Well, we mix these families together, and that estate money flows the right direction. It'll come to us. You like women?
That's my weakness.
Did you expect that going into the movie? Because
Not at all.
this is very much similar to the other aspects that Scorsese movies have, where it's following a villain character. We see this
Mm,
again in Wolf of Wall Street. We see this in Goodfellas, where we're following a bad character in their rise and in their fall.
yeah.
Just from the trailers from this, I was thinking it wasn't going to be that style. More than
Mhm.
anything, I thought it was going to be Leo and Molly sort of fighting off some people who were trying to kill these women. And
Yeah.
then you sort of slowly realize, no, it's not just that. It's Leonardo DiCaprio fully like committing to doing it as well.
Yeah. At first, you think he is apprehensive and he's not really too, not necessarily apprehensive, but he's not happy about doing any of these things through this movie.
He's hesitant.
Um, yeah. And so, but in doing that, his character was just so stupid.
He was
And they
dumb.
made him real dumb, yeah, and his uncle took advantage of that, and he knew he would, like, listen to family, and he's like, "Come on, son, you gotta help the family," whatever, all
Mhm.
that, and
And I
so he
think,
totally
no, sorry.
ensnared and pushed Leo into all that, and I think that's shown in the end of the movie, in some of the court, and then
Mhm.
also with just what Scorsese wraps it up with in the end.
Specifically, I think they played a lot into Robert De Niro's, who is his uncle's character. They
Mhm.
show him to be both a deputy sheriff and to be a priest. Um, and as a priest, he has this line that he tells to Leo over and over again, where it's like, when we kill these women, they are going to be sent to heaven where they get their judgment. All of us are are going to have this same thing. But the only way in which our family, our lineage, gets a good outcome is if we get their oil money. So they were going to be sent off to a good living in heaven, while our lineage gets the benefit from this life. And that's fed to him over and over again.
Yeah. And the character, there's really never any sort of doubt. I mean, through almost the entire movie until people like drill it into his head basically.
Mm-hmm.
Like whatever, fucking God, fuck his name, Leo. Whenever Leo is doing like any of these choices and shit, he's just always, whenever he has that hesitation, he's just, well, my uncle, he wouldn't hurt a fly. He's the nicest man around. I heard he can get like what can happen if you get on his bad side,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't plan to.
He
And
was
so
horrifying in this.
yeah, and so he just has this complete blind admiration almost for his uncle, and he's just following him, just without, like, thought, and the whole movement of everyone listening to the uncle, and he's provided so much, and he's such a, like, godfather basically of this little town, and
Mm-hmm.
then, there's a certain point in the movie, I don't remember when, I guess when the federal government comes in the last hour,
Jesse
where
Plemons.
yeah, Plemons, where you just can watch his really slow downfall, and I enjoyed how the character wasn't scared, or he never got to a point where he's like, "Come on, son, please help me. I need you right now." He was
Mm-hmm.
never like begging. He was always confident in like he was gonna get out. The Osage love him. He's got connections, and I really enjoy that about the character. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
really like cool for a bad guy.
The closest we get to him begging is when we have Leo and De Niro both in their DC jail cell, and
Mhm.
this is the second time that Leo has planned to what's it called?
Talk against him in court,
Yeah,
whatever.
talk against De Niro. He was going to one
Zencastr.
time, Brendan
Yeah.
Fraser stopped him, and now he's gonna go do it again. He told De Niro that just to be like, "I have to do this for my family." De Niro doesn't beg him to do it. He says, "You're going to make a mistake. Think about what you're doing. Think
Mhm.
about what you're doing." He can't let himself be vulnerable.
And
He
then
can never.
uh, doesn't De Niro then convince Brendan Fraser and such to convince Leo to take the fall for his grandfather or his uncle?
I don't
Wasn't that the whole
remember.
deal when they took him into that like, they took him into the back room and sat Leo down because he walked in and Brendan Fraser's like, "I need to talk to my client."
Well, that's after all those parts, but during those parts we have, or before this, we have we have him basically stuck with the federal government. The first time he was going to confess, he had only had connections with the federal government. He didn't have much to talk with De Niro. He goes to court. Immediately, Brendan Fraser says that he's his defender. So they go back and they have a big sit down with a lot of oil company men, with Fraser, with De Niro, and they all talk to him and go, "If you do this, you're going to have your family taken away from you. They are not going to do anything they promise. You can get a lot of money. We have the best lawyers. We can save all of this if you don't mess it up."
Yeah. Um, what do you think about the music?
The music in this was, I'm I don't know. It's disappointing. I never
Yeah.
thought that Martin Scorsese had the best composers on his side. Um, some of the most iconic music he has in his stuff, like the Goodfellas soundtrack, that's music from the 50s that he just sort of brought in.
Yeah.
In this, it focused a lot on native music, and I think that's really important. However, that native music doesn't usually fit the tone very well for like what emotion you're trying to go for, and it
No.
doesn't, and it could be very repetitive.
Yeah. I think I mean, the only thing I can really think of hearing in the music was, like, drums and, like, a flute, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that was really it,
Mm-hmm.
and it makes sense for the movie and the setting and all that. It works in that regard, but as music in a blockbuster movie, I just don't think that really did it for me.
Mm-hmm.
There was some emotional moments that really could have been heightened from some good music, and leaving it out is also a choice, but it can benefit you really well in certain
Mm-hmm.
places.
Yeah. There is one movie that's very famous for not having any music, uh,
Mm.
except for the very end. I think you've seen it, Portrait of a Lady on Fire. It's like a pretty popular French movie.
I think you've
It
seen it, Poopy Dumb Comfort. Have you
I
heard of
mean,
it? No, yeah, what is it?
it's a famous French movie. It's like what most people consider one of the only like true masterpieces of the 21st century. It's okay.
Mm.
Um,
It's alright.
I liked it, but no, it didn't have any soundtrack except for the very, very end, and then it just like has one shot with a girl crying over that one song.
Well, okay, I guess.
Yeah, you'd maybe like it.
I don't know, if it's that quiet the whole movie, I might I feel like I'd go stir crazy watching it. It's like, "God, I have to hear this guy's footsteps again?"
One thing I would like to ask you about this movie is:
Mm.
did you notice the population shift as things were going on?
I mean, I noticed at the beginning there were just a lot more Osage,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it just slowly was more, like, whitewashed,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't pay attention to it really.
No, I get that. That was one of the things that got stuck in my head. Watching this whole
Mm,
thing, you start at the beginning when Leo first gets off the train. You see a lot of white men that are sort of begging for jobs, and at the same time, you see a lot of rich
mm.
Osage right around them, sort of ordering things around.
You know,
And
they did that whole train thing, like, 4 different times, I'm now thinking.
what you
Like, the
think?
walking through the train station scene, because
Yeah.
they did it again with Molly, and then they did it again when, like, the inspector guy was there.
Hmm. And then once you go into the town square, you see a lot more Osage and stuff like that, and you see them interacting. And then slowly over time, you just go back to that town square and you notice less and less Osage, and you notice more and more sort of buildings being brought, specifically like what I'd say is white oriented buildings, like a ballerina class. When they have the opening for that, it's literally, when you look inside, there's only like white little girls practicing, and it's like this marvel, and everybody's taking photos around it. And there were 2 Osage there.
Yeah, it has become a like an Americanized town at this
Hmm.
point for what you would picture in the 1920s America, and versus being an Indian reservation, even though they are on that reservation,
Yeah.
which is why they do a lot of this stuff and why they feel like they can, is because since they're on a reservation, there's like, I guess, a lot of loopholes and things the U.S. government just can't do because they're on that land. And so
Hmm.
that's why the uncle in that family feels so immortal, basically, for such a big part of this movie. And even when the federal government does get there, the uncle like doesn't even think they can do anything. They don't even think they can touch him like at all.
Yeah.
He's not even worried.
They truly believe, because they're on Native American land, that
Mm.
federal laws can't be enforced there.
Yeah,
It can be, especially since the Native Americans go to Washington D.C. and say, "Hey, we're being killed. Can you send like
yeah.
can you please send the FBI?" And they're like, "Sure, we have Texas Ranger Jesse Plemons."
Yeah, I was so surprised that someone actually showed up. Like, I knew they would because of the commercials and stuff, but
Hmm.
when Molly went to DC and she's all sickly and dying, and she's like, "I might not have another chance." Oh, we didn't even say that. Molly's dying through this like whole
Yeah,
movie because Leo's kind of poisoning her.
yeah.
Um,
I
but
think
yeah,
that was like the whole movie. I was wondering, does he know that this is affecting her, or does he like, or is he just that dumb?
he probably didn't know up until. I mean, at first, I don't think he did know, but then obviously, I'm sure he started to catch on, being one of the few blankets that were left.
Hmm.
And then also at that one night where then he took the other half of the vial instead of giving it to her, and you could
He.
see how, like, disheveled and, like, it just how horrible he felt
Hmm.
in that chair, and then that combined with how
Yeah.
horrible his wife felt, you could really, like, see him, just, going through it all mentally, like, figuring out, like, "I've been doing this to her, this is how I'm making her feel," like, having that
Hmm.
own battle in his head.
I can describe that sort of situation real quick.
Go
Um,
go for it.
so diabetes, what we've been shown, is very rampant in Osage, especially
Mhm.
Osage women,
Yeah.
and this is around the time that insulin from pigs had just been invented. And as a gift, one of the people in town is giving a steady supply to Leonardo DiCaprio's wife, Molly.
Yeah.
Molly is to get a shot, I believe, once a week. And she sort of is very adamant about not taking it. She doesn't think that it's actually helping her.
Mhm.
And to, I don't know if that was real insulin or if it was just like water and she was slowly dying. I don't know about that. But
I think it was real, it was just he was mixing in the goop.
yeah, and then halfway through her taking the stuff, Robert De Niro goes up to Leonardo DiCaprio and he goes, "Hey, she's using up a lot of her energy, and that's like making her worse. You need to give her some of this, put in the vial, so that she'll slow down and she'll stop
Mhm.
using her energy." He looks at him and he's like, "You could argue he doesn't know. You could argue he does know, because I was thinking that the whole time." Like, because he looks at him very confused, like, "You sure this will just slow her down?" And he says, "Yes, yes, of course." And it gives like that look where it's like he's BSing. But she starts getting much worse after that. She's almost about to die by the time that Leo has to be held up by federal authorities.
Mhm. And I think I don't know if it's necessarily him figuring it out, but I think being suspicious is
Hmm.
definitely like an option here.
Hmm. Right as we see Molly about to die, we have one of the best shots, and it happens twice in this film. You see her sort of looking out in her room, and you see an owl walk into it and fly straight at her.
Mhm.
And that's a message that her mother had given her right before she had died, saying, "If you see an owl, then it means that our people are dying." Specifically, it might mean just them. It also just means all of them in general.
Yeah,
I've
it
always
just
thought
means
that was really
the
meaningful.
Osage in general was dying, and
Hmm.
I think the first owl when the old lady saw it was really funny. I laughed really hard, um,
I was
because
genuinely
she
kind
was
of
just
scared.
Well, she was just, and then he was just like, "Hey," like walking in. But then later, when the mother finally died, and then those like I'm assuming what was her mother and father, and then just another dead native guy like took her
Hmm.
away.
Yeah,
That was just, and she was so happy. She was like, "Oh
yeah.
my god, they're
You
here."
when we see her mother die, she has a hallucination, or this is sort of a religious aspect to it, where we see three people take her away, and then we cut back to her lying in bed as she has never moved. It could be her mother and father. Maybe that's just religious figures for the Osage. I'm not sure.
Well, they don't
My
have a specific like they don't have a specific guy. I'm pretty sure.
I'm pretty sure that is correct. They have figures they call grandfather, which is the sun, mother, which is the moon, father, which is fire. They go through that a little bit. Honestly,
Yeah, and
after
then
this
there's like Mother
podcast,
Earth and things like that. All
yeah,
those.
after this, I'm probably going to ask my grandpa about it because he's read a lot into the Osage because he's from that area and he's always felt
Oh, did he marry into it?
no,
Oh,
no,
okay.
he did not
Are you
marry into it.
sure?
I'm sure. But no, I think he's really going to enjoy this movie. He's been looking forward to it. He actually brought me and my brother to set into the town square area, which was really cool. They were just like places that had been put up over other walls.
Mhm.
Uh, and I feel like he's going to be really disappointed when he sees that there was a KKK parade going through that area.
That's rough, but it'd be a lot more awkward if he gets excited.
It'd be
Actually, wait, who was the leader in the front of that little KKK parade? Wasn't it like the pastor or something? And he was like, "Oh, hi." He like
yeah,
waved all nice.
yeah. It was called like the March for Veterans or something like that.
Yeah. And it was
And
just
that
people in like clans robes, very obviously.
Yeah, I
But
mean, yeah, I didn't think the KKK was going to be a part of this. When I was with my friend, I noticed like out of focus there was a drawing of a KKK member on the bank. The
mm,
banker's like background had a poster, and I'm like, man, that's a cool little detail they added in there. That's like, we're supposed to think he's a bad guy, but that's probably as far as it goes. And then they just have a speech where they're like, yeah, the KKK is not gonna, it's not gonna get that big, folks. They look stupid. And then the
I like
next
to
thing you
think,
know,
yeah, I like to think that that little poster behind the desk is like a wanted poster, but that's the best. He had a hood on, so they don't really know what he looks like. They just drew it up anyway. That's my canon.
The one that might have been a different one. The one I saw was sort of like this oil painting of a KKK member on a KKK horse with like a torch.
Oh, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Fucking
Uh,
idiot. What what about the camera work? I guess we should touch on because
boring.
yeah, it really
Uh,
wasn't anything special.
I think everything he did, and this is very obvious about Scorsese, everything he does is supposed to uh what's the word, sort of bring out action and bring out people. We're supposed to be
Mhm.
able to show emotions more than anything, and he sticks to very simple camera shots. There are a few that I thought really stuck out. The ending shot, I think you'll agree, was really good.
Mhm. I really enjoyed the violence wasn't glorified at all in this
No,
movie, and
absolutely
then the
not.
scenes when they did have it, it was very quick, and that added to the brutality, I think, and the kind of like hush hush nature of like all the killings when we did see
Yes,
them. Um,
like what
and
we
so
saw.
the
Sorry.
gunshots really are
Hmm.
mostly just because they are so sudden. A lot of the time, we're just
Yes.
looking at this one angle of it happening. We don't like see three different angles, him trying to line it up, whatever. It's just like, all right, take the gun out, boom, casually put it back away, drive off.
Yeah.
Like it's just very nonchalant, and I really enjoy that about this movie. That it's not making it a big thing because to
Hmm.
these guys, it's not a big thing. To these guys, as horrible as it is, they're exterminating like vermin to them. They don't really care.
Molly's sister is by far the best example of this. They have him take the girl into the woods, and we see the story of how she specifically died throughout the entire film in tiny pieces. But
Mhm.
when we finally get the shot of how they did it, it's literally just they're taking this drunk girl into the woods. They have her sit down on a thing. One guy's holding her. They shoot her, and they're like, "Okay, let's go." And that's all one shot, and it's so quick, and there's no emotion put into it. It's horrifying.
Yeah, they shoot her and then she drops on the ground. They kind of look at her and they literally like shrug and then like do a 180 and walk away.
It's very
And the
similar to
girl
The Departed.
yeah, and, the girl is like, she literally just says, "Well, if you're just gonna, like, kill me," and they don't even respond or do nothing, they just really don't care, and, like, how just
Mhm.
cold and, I mean, almost calculated it is where they're just moving to the next thing, I really enjoyed.
Yeah. They did the same thing with the private investigator that they brought on very early into the movie before they had the FBI. We see Leonardo DiCaprio, specifically him, kill the private investigator with a gun. And in that same thing, it's very quick. There's no emotion to it.
So we didn't see that it was Leo when we did see the private investigator that Molly hired die.
Not at
And then
first.
it's only revealed to us a little bit later. But even revealing it to us, I don't think it changed a lot of the movie. Like that was a reveal that was very quick, and I was like, oh okay.
Hmm.
And I was just like, okay, I guess he's just listening to his uncle even more. But this
Yeah.
whole movie, he's literally doing whatever. I mean, he's like he's the goon of the gang. They'll just send him to do whatever.
Yeah. Uh, I think the worst death that sort of comes from this is when Leo specifically hires a demolition expert to attach explosives to his sister-in-law's home,
Hmm.
who has Bill, who's one of the only white men who marries a Native American woman who isn't in on it. He legitimately, I think he has a money uh, to seek out because he marries one girl, they kill her unbeknownst to him, and then he marries another, which was weird. You know what I mean? To
I
marry in
think
the family again.
I think he's trying to get the money. He just doesn't know everyone else is doing that too.
He But one thing that makes me think otherwise is when they're having a talk with each other at that house, Leo goes, or Bill, who is the character, talks to Leo and goes, "Man, you really like money." He says, "Yeah, but you do too." And he's like, "Not like you, man." And that's supposed to sort of
Yeah.
differentiate them. Um,
We're constantly saying, like there's all the white men in the town that just work normal jobs or like work a store or something like that. Or
mhm.
the example we're given is the guy that makes the caskets and headstones and all that.
Yes.
Um, he like directly insults Leo because he's like, it's not your money. You don't work for any of it. I work for my money. You're just getting it from your wife. And there's like a
Mhm.
constant kind of look down upon nature for that because every other person in this town, including the Osage, are fully aware of what's kind of going on. They just don't really know where the killings are directly coming from.
Mhm. Um, going back to the murders, when we have
Mhm.
Leo trying to kill his sister and brother-in-law, they set up explosives outside their house, and when it goes off, it like alerts the whole neighborhood, including Leo, who lives there,
Mhm.
and you see the house burn down, and you see Bill, who's still there, who's still alive barely, and who's in the wreckage dying, and he's just yelling, somebody shoot me right now." That
Yeah,
was
he's
the
all
worst.
impaled, and, like, just in a bad way, but I think that was a really good addition.
His
Um,
wife's um his wife's death was worse though. Do you remember
I
that?
well, I didn't remember his wife's death, I just remember her body being very, very quaintly placed inside of the burning building, it was just kinda
Mhm.
laying there.
She was lied down, very similar to how we see all the dead Osage, where
Yeah,
she's
but,
just
like,
lying down with her arms crossed.
how is
When
it
they
so
ch-
perfect?
what? I think it's
How
just
is it
supposed
so
to fit
perfect?
the when it's not super perfect. When they go to pick her up to see if she's alive, we go to a shot of behind her head, and we see her like brain fall out.
But yeah, she had bits of like her all back of her head was like that. But I'm saying when the camera panned over to him, like Bill was buried in rubble and like screaming and bloody, and she was like quietly laying there, like already dead, obviously, and gray, but like in a nightie and like just taking a little snooze. And it was just really weird. She looked like she was placed there,
It's
and they're
called
like, all right,
symbolism.
we're not gonna blow up this section of the house.
We have to make it look pretty.
Guys, come on, think of the newspaper. They need a good picture. Um, yeah, but that whole and then when they're going over the wreckage later and Leo's there,
Hmm.
and the uncle walks up and someone's like, "You're making yourself too pronounced," and then he's like, "What?" And then he trips over the hand of a maid,
Yes.
and he has no real remorse for it. He has no like. There's no even like, "Oh, that poor girl," or anything. It's just like, "Huh." So it's really at a point of like whoever is in the way kind of thing. It's like whoever dies dies kind of deal.
Mhm.
It's not really a concern for him anymore, and that's
Yeah.
constantly told through us through just the actions of all the characters and how they like how much emotion they're showing to these. But it's just reiterated in different ways and like built upon consistently through this movie.
Mhm. Oh, man. I think this movie overall was a great experience because it was a very great way of telling the story. I also think the format wasn't the best way to show it, possibly. I might have preferred one where we're from the point of view of the investigator than if it were from the point of view of Leo's character. I'm not sure.
Yeah, being the movie being called Killers of the Flower Moon, it does sound like it's going to be like a mystery thriller whodunit kind of shtick.
Mhm.
That is what the name gives off, and I can completely see audiences going in and being a little disappointed that there is almost no element of mystery in this whole movie.
Mhm.
All the facts are laid out for us, and so I mean, on opening day, this how much do you think this movie made?
I had read somewhere it might have been $9 million.
It was 9,000,000 with a $200 million budget.
It's yeah, this
I am
movie
a
is not
little nervous for it being, like, even be able to make its money back, I guess, until streaming.
um okay, so what was I told about this movie? First of all, this movie is a Apple TV production. It
Yeah.
was made by Apple. That means after its release, it's going to stay on Apple. That was
Mhm.
originally what they were planning on, just having an Apple release, but they saw success out of Oppenheimer and they brought it to this. They
Yeah.
thought that they legitimately believed that because of Oppenheimer, something like this could get a ton of money. And maybe it won't. It definitely won't have that sort of spike Oppenheimer had for, I think,
Mhm.
two big reasons. One, Christopher Nolan, I think, is the most popular director for a general audience. Like people love Interstellar, people love the Batman movies. You attach those to like a franchise or to a movie, and you're like, okay, I'm going to go watch this. I think second of all, it was pitched as a theater experience. Like,
Mhm.
man, this movie was made so you could see that big bomb. Nothing like that was apparent in
Yeah,
Killers of
and
the
there was
Flower
all
Moon.
that advertising about or not advertising, but everything being practical and stuff being a big point everyone was
Yeah.
excited about. But with this movie, I think the story is just as good as Oppenheimer, if not, better with the depth of characters,
Hmm.
but I think presented with the 2, I would almost consistently go with Oppenheimer versus this movie. I can't I can't really put my finger on why. Like, this movie is good. It's a fantastic story, the characters are great, everyone's developed amazing, the pacing is on point, but the music is just kind of okay. The camera work isn't anything amazing. It's just nothing about this movie makes me drawn to it aside from the story alone. I think if a
Hmm.
movie can do that, that's very impressive, but that also can hurt it in a pretty, like, considerable amount.
Yeah, I'll have to agree. This movie's story and its acting, I'll add acting,
Yeah.
are incredible. I also believe Oppenheimer is a better film. Uh, it does pretty similar elements a lot better. It adds things that make the movie a lot more incredible. First of all, Oppenheimer's soundtrack is incredible. The cinematography is pretty astounding at points. Also has a great cast. Has the back and forth between two different points in time, which I think
Mhm.
adds to the story a lot. It
Yeah.
doesn't, and I think it's like what? How much shorter is Oppenheimer than Killers of the Flower Moon?
I mean, let me look up because Killers was 3 hours and 36 minutes.
Insane.
So, let me see how long Oppenheimer was.
Hmm.
Um, and Oppenheimer was 3 hours on the dot.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I
So it's
think
about
that's
half an hour more, and I'm gonna say so most of, like, the prison sequences, I guess, and, like, the jail stuff was really the
yeah.
extra bit.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. I'm thinking mostly about this movie. I think it was great. I also don't think it's one of his best, but I'm gonna still say that I think this story is perfect to have. No, wait, let me reword. I think this movie for sure is a good experience and a movie that should have been made. And I think it consistently shows how good Scorsese is, even if I don't think it's the best movie of the year.
Yeah, I think it shows us as the audience and as filmmakers that there are still like untold, pretty like important and like incredible stories that have already happened in our own history that
Mm-hmm.
he's looking back on, and that is pretty impressive just to pull from like U.S. history, especially a time like the 1920s that's been so saturated. But then he doesn't make it feel like it doesn't matter that it's the 1920s. It's just where it's when it's
Mm-hmm.
going on.
Yeah. It's more
Um,
of a where movie than it is a when story, which I think
yeah,
was very interesting.
I think that this movie will be successful in the long run, but I don't think it's going to win like any awards.
I think
Well,
Molly has
mm,
Best Actress down.
yeah, she was really good.
She was incredible.
But so overall, with all that stuff, do you have any other big points you want to say about it? Are you ready to rate it?
I really don't think I did. I'll add one thing and one thing only.
Hmm.
We had been talking a lot about how we have done a crap ton of Matt Damon movies. I
Yeah.
will argue that Jesse Plemons counts for half a Matt Damon and that Leonardo DiCaprio counts for half a Damon. Therefore, this is another Matt Damon movie.
Listen, no, you can't. You can't just do that.
That's
You can't mix
that's
them together.
totally fair.
No.
That's completely fair. They both sort of look like Matt Damon.
If anything, Brendan Fraser cancels it out. Can you picture a Matt Damon movie with Brendan Fraser? I can't.
That's fair, but now we have a good pitch for Hollywood.
There you go. You're right.
It's going to
Brendan
be a
Fraser's
rom-com.
trending, man. Oh God. I'll tell you something in the news.
Okay.
But so for your rating, what are you gonna give this movie?
I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. I'm going to say this is a rough, good 4 out of 5. I give that to movies that I think are classics. I think there are movies that are going to consistently be praised, but movies that I still have some gripes with.
Yeah, I think that's really fair for this movie. I'm gonna give it a. I've really been going between like a 3 and a 4.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say a 3, or
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say 3.5 because
Okay.
if you put that onto a 10 scale, that's a 7. So for me, that's like this is what I expected the movie to give me, but because there wasn't anything that really blew me away or made me want to immediately share this movie with other people, I think it's just a 3 for me. But it was a fantastic story.
I understand that. I completely understand that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, ready to go into news?
Yeah. What was the news bit you wanted to say?
So, there's been some quotes about Aquaman 2 that's coming out soon or soonish.
Oh, you're right.
And so they've said that it's gonna be a buddy style comedy is what the movie is. Like that's what I think the director is quoted saying.
Oh, is it between Patrick Wilson's Ocean Master and Jason Momoa's Aquaman?
Let me see. Yeah.
I love them.
Aqu-
I think that's going to be great.
so the quote is Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is a outright buddy comedy, says James Wan. He says he wanted to do Tango and
Mm.
Cash. I don't know who Tango and Cash is,
I
but
think Tango Cash might have been some famous movie. Let's be honest here.
probably.
Here, us at Wham, we're not socially educated.
No, no. But I don't want a buddy comedy for my superhero movie again. I thought we were getting over this superhero movies are all funny hump.
I think that's fair. A lot of people are expecting some good, like, dark action in this, especially since they're adapting such a dark storyline in Aquaman. And I'm
Mhm.
really hoping for that. However, I love Ocean Master. From the brief times I've seen him, not only in this movie, but in other media. And I think it'll be really funny, especially since that's like brother and brother.
Is is that lady that everyone hates, is she in
Uh,
it?
I think her name is Mira in the Aquaman. Her actress name is obviously Amber Heard. Yes,
Yeah, Amber
she's
Heard.
in it, and it's caused a lot of drama on set. Actually, if you've heard of that,
So I did remember hearing that, but I don't remember if they ever like actually changed anything. So she is in the final movie and everything?
she's in the final movie.
Mm,
She's very likely to die in this movie if we're adapting that
good.
storyline.
Yeah.
But one thing I remember is Jason Momoa came to set with Amber Heard dressed up as Johnny Depp and like sort of like annoying her. And Elon Musk had to say he'd sue him if he continued because that was around the time that he was dating her.
That's so stupid. Stop being mean to my girlfriend, I'll sue you.
I think, I don't know, if you believe her and you believe that like that shit had happened and then some guy comes to set dressed up as her abuser, I can see why that would be a problem. And you're in a case
But
where
she
if it's
was
your
the
girlfriend,
abuser.
I think there's a good amount of evidence to say that both of them did really bad stuff to each other. Like there was that
Yeah,
one
but she like cut his finger off.
that I think probably trumps everything that happened.
And went poopy in the bed.
I don't care about that, man. I went poopy in the bed. I went poopy in the bed.
Yeah, I'm not too excited for that being such a strong or a buddy cop comedy, whatever it's gonna be. I hope it's more serious, like that story is. But
a MySpace documentary is in the works.
Why?
Documentaries might be getting a huge boost in this actor strike if it continues. Writer strike is now officially over, and people will be able to write things like this. But because we don't have actors, we might have to rely on some reality television because that doesn't count as actors, and we might also have to rely on documentaries. It was one of the first social medias, to be fair. Like that's pre-Facebook.
Yeah, but I don't care.
I'm okay with a boost in documentaries during this time. Documentaries are a great form of media. However, let's not do it on boring stuff.
Yeah, guys, maybe let's steer away from MySpace.
I have one funny piece. It isn't necessarily connected to movies, but I think you're going to freak out at this. Have you heard of Coca-Cola Y3000?
No.
Coca-Cola asked an AI to make a new flavor, and they're now selling it.
Does it have cyanide in it?
This could very obviously be like a portal neurotoxin thing. Yeah, who asked for that? Who asked for
who greenlit this?
I'm sure they had to test it, you know? They probably did say
AI test it. It's fine.
We did a deep investigation into ourselves and we found no wrongdoing.
Guys, I'm happy to report we weren't lying, we swear.
No, I don't know. Why would we do this?
What is the Y3000? What the fuck is it?
I don't know what the flavor is. Nobody does yet, I don't think.
Oh, it's just coming?
It's just going to come soon, yeah.
That's really odd, but I'm going to buy it. What else? More.
There's a little bit of celebrity drama going on. I don't know if you saw this. You know Emily Blunt, right?
It sounds familiar.
John Krasinski's wife. She was also in Quiet Place.
Yeah.
Okay, so a video came out of her in 2012 just talking about how she really hated this fat waitress at a Chili's. And that got big on social media for like a couple of days. And she came out with an apology. I think I have her apology right here, where it's just like, I'm appalled that I would say something so insensitive, hurtful, and unrelated to whatever story I was trying to tell on a talk show. That's awesome, isn't it? This might require you and maybe viewers to look this up because it's more of a visual thing. Stranger Things Season 5 is still being created and being developed right now, even though there's an actor strike going on that is stopping our actors from coming on set. That doesn't stop virtual effects from doing their work. However, they can't really place their actors inside the special effects, so they've been working with these really downgraded models, and I can maybe send the photo over to you just to see if you see it, but rest assured, if this actor strike goes on for too long, we're going to have Stranger Things movie that are Stranger Things show that's acted out by Sims.
Oh my god. This is like that really horrible game like Road to Retribution or whatever it is where you're a biker and it like just doesn't work at all. That's what this reminds me of. Oh my god. Yeah, y'all need to look that up. Just wow. Yeah, just look up like pre-visuals from final season of Stranger Things. It'll probably come up on Twitter. It's horrifying. Will's neck is probably the size of like 3 softballs.
Wait, let me.
It's like he's hiding something in there. It's like the kid from Bavarian. That's what it looks like.
I think that's Jonathan. That might be Jonathan,
not it is.
Will.
You're right.
You can't tell. It looks horrifying.
Yeah, I implore everyone to go look that up in your spare time.
So we might be watching next week Five Nights at Freddy's. It comes down
Mhm.
to scheduling. If not, we'll still have a film out by next week, obviously. And also, we're going to be sticking to Sunday or later releases from now, just so that we can watch movies on Fridays and have something relatively soon come out.
Yeah, so if a movie comes out that Friday, we can have it posted up that Sunday, just like we have it this week.
In theory.
In theory. Yeah, well, theory can only get you so far, This has been it. Thank you guys for listening to Wham.
You've been whammed.
All right, see you guys later.
See ya!